Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on how to effectively use the Copyright Public Records System. My name is Alicia Morris. I work in the Public Information and Education Office, and I'm a host of today's webinar. Before we start, I'd like to share just a few logistical announcements with you. During today's webinar, you will be able to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We will answer these questions after the presentation is complete. However, we may not be able to answer all of them. And since this session is being recorded, please note that if you choose to participate and your question is addressed, it will be included in the recording as part of this webinar. Once we are finished with today's session, please fill out the survey that will pop up on your screen. Your comments are a tremendous help to us when we are planning our future events. And now I would like to welcome our today's first presenter, Denise Woolford, Assistant Registrar and Director of the Office of Copyright Records. Hello, Denise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. As Alicia mentioned, I'm Denise Woolford, the Assistant Registrar and Director for the Office of Copyright Records. Presenting with me today are Sean Gallagher and Robin Correa. They are co-product owners overseeing the development of the new Copyright Public Records System. I think it's meaningful to take a moment to look back at how copyright public records have advanced over the years. 22 years ago, back in April 2003, the Copyright Office initiated a project to move to the online public catalog that you all use today. This project took several years to finish, both the development effort and the data migration of 20 million copyright registration and recordation records, which were converted from a mainframe system that was only available to the public by being physically on site here in the U.S. Copyright Office in Washington, D.C. When the public catalog came online in 2007, it was a significant step forward because it offered additional search options like the ability to do keyword searching and filtering requests. It provided display labels to identify parts of the record. And most importantly, it provided access to copyright records on the internet. However, as time went by, as business requirements in the Copyright Office advanced and public expectations changed, the 2007 public catalog system became obsolete, lacking up-to-date modern online features. For example, its structure is based on the library MARC format, a machine-readable cataloging standard used in library science for creating and sharing bibliographic records, which is restrictive and not specific to how copyright information is arranged and used. It has an interface that is not intuitive compared to how the public currently prefers to search for information on the internet. It requires strict formatting of search inputs to get results. It has a 10,000 results limit, and it contains a limited set of copyright records. For example, it does not include any pre-78 records still under copyright protection. To address the need for a modern system to replace the public catalog, in the fall of 2019, the Copyright Office began the development of a new system called the Copyright Public Records System, or CPRS, its acronym. CPRS is a part of the Copyright Office's current modernization effort to transform both external services and internal workflows with a unified, consolidated group of software modules being developed under the new Enterprise Copyright System. The Enterprise Copyright System seeks to make all of the Office's services digital, interconnected, searchable, and easy to navigate. After 1 year in development, the CPRS pilot was released online to the public in December of 2020. Since its release, both the public and copyright staff have been using the new pilot system by testing its features, becoming familiar with the new interface, providing feedback on the design, and making recommendations on additional enhancements. CPRS has many benefits. It offers a modern interface, it has flexible formatting, it provides simple and advanced search, it has dynamic filters, provides the ability to email and download records, focuses on copyright content and information, and offers more comprehensive sets of records, including pre-78 records, certificates of registration and recordation, and other related copyright information. A lot has been accomplished to prepare for the new system to go live. Therefore, the Copyright Office is pleased to announce today that the Copyright Public Records System will go into full production next month in June. At this time, it will move out of the pilot phase to become the sole source of authoritative copyright information, replacing the public catalog. To prepare you for this change, Robin and Sean have additional information to share about the system, as well as a demo of the system's features. I hope you find their presentation informative, and I encourage you to use the pilot system now to conduct your online searches so you can become familiar with its features before the production go live in June. Next up is Robin Correas. Robin, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Denise, and welcome everyone. I'm going to give you a brief timeline of what's new in CPRS from 2021 to the present. And then following this timeline, Sean will demo all of the features and functionality that are currently available in CPRS. In 2021, we added recent records and recent searches, and links to those pages can be found in the center at the top of the screen. On the recent records page, we'll show you a brief view of the 100 most recent records you viewed from the search results page. For recent searches, information about the 100 most recent searches you performed will display. Information you will see about those searches includes the search term you used, field heading used, the number of results retrieved, and a date and time stamp for when the search was first performed. In 2021, we also added the ability to download records in PDF, text, and CSV format. In 2022, we added links to related registration records. Related registration records describe a variety of situations where a record contains a reference to an existing registration, such as pre-registrations, previous registrations, renewal registrations, supplementary registrations, and also those copyright claims that were re-registered where the original registration was canceled and the claim was re-registered. When you click on the hyperlink, a new search will be performed for that registration number. In 2022, we also added the name directory. Name directory feature allows you to search any individual or organization in CPRS. By clicking on the name, you can view records where that name appears. I will note that currently names from the card catalog records do not appear in the name directory. In 2022, we added card catalog application cards. There are currently about 3.7 million card catalog records in CPRS, and more are added each week. Most of these records are application cards from 1898 through 1945. So what are application cards? Like the paper application forms, the applicant completed the application card and submitted it to the Copyright Office. Using information on that card, the office indexed the work and recorded it by registration number in ledger books. These ledger books are part of our record book collection. The sample you see on the screen shows a registration submitted by Rudolph Valentino for his book Reflections. The metadata captured with the card appears next to the card image. When the 1 millionth card catalog record was added to CPRS, staff in Public Information and Education section wrote an entry for the Library of Congress's blog to celebrate this milestone. And we'll put a link in the chat to this blog post. In 2023, we added the card catalog collection facet. As the number of card catalog records increased, we wanted the ability to search for and view these records separately from all of the other records, so we added the card catalog collection facet. In 2024, we added material excluded as a field heading in advanced search. In addition to the help page, which you can find a link to on the right, we added tooltips that you can see tooltip by hovering over the symbol, which is the eye inside of a circle. And on the help page, we provide information about simple and advanced search, information about the name directory, and other information about searches. This is a brief timeline of what we've accomplished so far. And next, I'll turn it over to Sean, who will show you a demo of these features and functionality.
Thanks, Robin. Appreciate that. Let me just get my screen share going here, and we can move on with the demo. All right, so here we are at publicrecords.copyright.gov, which is the web address for the Copyright Public Records System. I believe that link will be in the chat as well if you'd like to follow along at home. So let's just go through a brief orientation of our page here. We'll get into some of the items up here in the header in a moment, but we are here on the home for search page. We have recent records, recent searches, the name directory, and the help page that Robin just mentioned, and we'll revisit those as we go through the demo. Denise mentioned that we wanted to have a really familiar, easy to use search bar. So we do have our main simple search keyword search bar right here at the main center of the page, very similar to what you may expect from other modern search engines. We really think this is it's a pretty broad and fantastic place to start. You can put in copyright numbers, authors, publishers, claimants, names that you're looking for that may be included as other parts of records that are not an author or a publisher or claimant, and a link to our advanced search. Below that, a little bit of welcome text to give you some context about the CPRS relationship to the public catalog that's available right now. And then as we move down to the page, we'll see a little bit about what you can expect to find in the Copyright Public Record System. So you will see registration and recordation records from 1978 to the present. And in addition to that, you'll also see card catalog records with images and metadata from about 1909 to 1945. Robin did mention that we are adding those on a pretty regular basis. So keep an eye on that record count. It will steadily increase each week. And we also have indexed information about those authors, claimants, parties, and relevant copyright dates. So beyond that, what will you not be able to find in the Copyright Public Record System? Physical copies of the work or reproductions of works that have been submitted for copyright. If you do want to request a copy, you can do so through records research and certification. And we have a link here in a number of places on the homepage to help you make that request. We're not going to show registration application status, so you won't see any in-processing information about registration applications through the Copyright Public Record System. Nor will you find notifications of court filings or determinations of actions under Section 508 associated with any registrations. If you are curious about those pieces of information, you can request that from records research and certification. Scrolling down a little bit farther, we have the other resources. So again, a big link to records research and certification where you can request copies of those records, certificates, search reports, and deposits. A link to the Historic Public Records main page where you can learn more about our efforts to preserve, digitize, and make available the Copyright Office's historic public records, which include record books, card catalog entries, as well as some reels of microfilm. We have a link to the virtual card catalog, which was the office's proof of concept of providing all 41.5 million scanned card catalog images online for folks to be able to browse and to filter based on some text for some of those cards. Some of those card images are being assembled and loaded into the Copyright Public Record System, but this is a link back to the original system in case you're looking for some of those card records between 1945 and 1977 that may not yet be available in CPRS. And lastly, we have a link to the Copyright Historical Record Books, which is an effort to digitize and make available the record books that is up in conjunction with the Library of Congress. So following that link, we'll let you know which books are available there. And we are uploading books on at least a monthly basis. So if you're still looking for books that haven't been digitized yet, keep an eye on that page as well, and you will be seeing more of those books populate as the months go by. Again, records research and certification can help you out with copy estimates and search estimates. There are links to those in the footer, as well as a way to provide feedback for us on your user experience and the searchability of the copyright public record system. So let's scroll back up, and Denise had mentioned the flexible searching. So I'm going to bring up a registration number here as you may see it on a certificate. And we'll give a search. So you'll note that a lot of the certificates for registration have a registration class followed by a space, a number, and then a set of hyphens and other numbers. In the public catalog right now, if you went to go try that out, you'd probably get rejected. You would get no search results because there's a very specific format that that database requires. Our search engine is a little bit more flexible. And so putting in that number as it appears on the certificate, you can even see I left a trailing space in there. Will bring you back that record that you've been searching for. And we see, I think this is a translation by Deborah Smith of the 2014 novel by Han Kang. The original system does require you to put in all three of these leading zeros, but if that's too much to remember because of the registration number, sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 4. You don't need to include any of the leading zeros. So omitting those will still get you that same result as will using the full 12 digits after the registration class for that flexible formatting. So we think that's a really easy and direct way to be able to find a specific registration if you already have that number. If you want to put a title or a name or a combination of both into that keyword search, that's pretty easy to do. So we can just search for Eyes Impossible, Dave Eggers. And the top result that we have here is that result for Eyes in the Impossible, which I believe was a 2024 Newbery Medal winner. Similarly, the keyword search is not limited just to text. You can also paste in ISBN numbers. So if we paste this one in, we're going to get back that singular result for Amanda Peters' Berry Pickers novel from 2023, which I think won an Andrew Carnegie Medal award in 2024. So coming back to the homepage, and again, you can access simple search from the top of your search results and from the main page here at our homepage. We can also do a specific name search. So we're going to try Amy Winehouse, since she was just added to the National Sound Recording Registry. This is going to search mentions of Amy Winehouse in a number of the different names that we have associated with our records. So you'll see we've got 26 results through here, and we can sort those by date if we like. And once we click into these records, we'll see the words and music. So Amy is credited here. Her name has been indexed from the authorship on the application and from the performer. And we can click through. You'll see that her name appears again in all of these results that we've found. Looking for another National Sound Recording inductee, let's change this to a title search. And we're going to look for the Hamilton Broadway cast. Now, you'll see we do have a fair amount of search results here. Denise mentioned that the online public catalog has a limit of about 10,000 search results. At the moment, we've bumped up our limit to 50,000. The results actually go deeper than that, but once we try to display more than 50,000, the system gets a little bit slow, and we'd like to think that the most relevant results are going to bubble up to the top. So again, we're displaying the first 10 of these results, and we can see there's a couple of different sound recordings here. We'll take a look at this one, the Hamilton American Musical. This is from 2021, but I believe the sound recording was a little bit earlier. So if we click into our detailed record view here, we can see our registration number, the type of work, and the title. We have a list of contents from the sound recording. And as we scroll down below that, we'll see that although the registration didn't happen until 2021, the data creation and publication were back in 2015. And so I think this is the sound recording that was inducted into the National Sound Recording Registry. So we can go back up to the top here, and then we'll go back to our search results. And let's just kind of review what are we seeing here on our search results page. We've got our search term is placed up there at the top near our toolbar. We've got our count of the search results. Over here on the left, we have a series of check boxes that we can select all of them here, or you can select individuals. After selecting one or more records, you can perform a series of actions on them. So you can email them to yourself if you'd like to have a copy of those records in your inbox. The other options we have for downloading those records are as a PDF, which is very similar to how it'll show up in your inbox. Just a straight text file, if that's a little bit easier for you to work with, and a CSV download, which gives you the fields that we show in our search results, as well as a link back to the original record. And I believe the email, PDF, and text also do contain links back to the public record system, just in case there's been any changes to the record if you want to link back to it. We do have some basic page navigation here where you can go previous and next through your set of search results. If this grid view is a little bit too busy for you, again, we are showing for these registrations at least, we've got the title, the registration number, type of work, a relevant date, and the claimant. If you'd like to browse through those results a little bit more quickly, you can switch over to the table view. So you do lose a little bit of information on the screen, but it's a much more compact view. And if you're going to search and sort these by date, and you want to go through those that way, or sort them alphabetically by title, you can do that as well. So going back to our grid view, we do have a little bit more page navigation down here where we start off with a default of 10, but you can adjust that to up to 100 rows for your search results. Paginating through the 4,400 pages of results that we have for this search, or jumping directly to one of those pages. So let's look over on the right-hand side and look at some of the filters and facets that we have available, in addition to the ability to share. If you'd like to share this socially or copy a link to any of your searches, you can do so through this sharing link as well. So we do have a number of dates that are associated with copyright records, and we do know that not all dates are going to apply to all records. If you leave the default date search, that's going to use the most relevant date for the copyright record you've chosen. For documents that are related to the transfer of copyright ownership, recorded documents, they have a date of recordation, which is much more relevant to that type of record, as opposed to registration claims where you're going to be looking for that effective date of registration. So if you're searching for a title or a name that may involve both copyright claims and recorded documents, you want to leave this on the default of dates. That's definitely the best way to go. And we do ask for your feedback as you're using the system. So we have this pop-up that comes in a couple minutes after your first search. If you click begin, that'll take you to a SurveyMonkey survey where we'd love to hear your feedback about the user experience of the system, as well as the relevancy of your search results. So we can select different dates, again, if we want to filter these down. So let's just do a quick, we'll filter this between 2021 and 2023. We'll limit our search results a little bit. And then what we can do is we can narrow this even further. So we can see in our filters right here, we're finding about 1,800 recordation records and about 728 registrations. We can filter that specifically by the effective date of registration. And as we do, keep an eye on these fields that are available, because you'll notice that as we apply these different date filters, the value is actually going to change. And so you'll be seeing the date that you're filtering by. Again, you can notice down here in our facets and filters that there are no more recordation records or recorded documents, because those don't have an effective date of registration associated with them. Similarly, this works for date of publication, date of creation. Again, you'll see that date change each time you make a selection and apply it. And we are getting slightly different results here because as we're doing this search, Broadway and Cast are also going to appear in a lot of these titles. And so those are coming up as well as Hamilton. So it's not always necessarily going to be the Hamilton Broadway cast, depending on how you're filtering it by date and where those results are found. So again, date of creation, I believe this shows up as a year in our records. So you'll see that as well. And if you select a year, it should be inclusive as long as the date is specified. If we go down to a date of creation, or sorry, date of certification, these are related to recorded documents. And so we have a much smaller subset here, as well as the date of recordation. We should see that bump up a little bit more. Yep, and we're not seeing any registration related records here because those don't have dates of recordation associated with them. I'm going to clear these out, and we'll talk just briefly about the filters that we have. I would like to note that the filters are meant to help you narrow your search results, and they may not be exhaustive of all of our records. The metadata that we use to populate these filters and facets that you see on the side were collected by the office over time. Again, some of these records go back to the very early 1900s, and there's been many changes in copyright law, cataloging practices, and the information available at the time that the record was created. We have done our best, though, to surface information and metadata about these records. So we will see the post-1977 records are the same records that you should expect to see in the office's online public catalog right now. In addition, we've got card catalog records, again, ranging from about 1909 to 1945. We've got registration and recordation records both available in the system, as well as the ability to filter them by publication status. As we go down further, we'll see registration classes. So the later registration classes, post 1977, you'll see these with the two-letter abbreviation after them. Those that are written out in longer form are likely associated with card catalog records and the classes that existed back when those records were created. If we go further down, you'll see registration item types. So these are more specific types of work that are registered underneath a class. And then we also have different types of documents or recorded documents that have been submitted to the office when that information is available. So this takes us through a basic orientation of our search results page. Let's move on to the advanced search functionality. So when you begin an advanced search, you have the ability to establish a set of pre-filters. These are exactly like the facets and filters that we just saw on the search results page on the side, but these are filters that you can apply ahead of time. If you already know that you're only looking for recorded documents or you're only looking for registrations, you can limit your search this way. We have a number of field headings that you can apply, beginning with keyword, the title, notes and series, as well as searching all copyright numbers, limiting that search to just recordation or registration numbers, and then a series of fields that are a little bit more relevant to copyright, such as the claimants and parties 1 and 2 for recorded documents that usually correspond to who's giving or receiving the rights for that copyright. Again, I didn't show that we could search for ISBN numbers in the beginning using the keyword search, but if you know that you have a specific standardized number, such as ISBN, ISSN, or ISRC, you can specify that particular field to help limit your search results, or you can go with all standardized numbers, which encompasses a slightly broader list of numbers available. We also have the publication location, publisher number, physical descriptions, and as Robin noted, we added the material excluded at the request of the public in 2024, and we'll show that in just a minute. So let's do a pretty simple search here. So if we're going to search for a title, and let's look for the residence, and we're going to add a row, and let's look for all names. And let's look for Brower and see what kind of results we get here. All right, and you should be able to add at least 3 or 4 rows with these Boolean operators if you'd like to be able to customize your search. So we are seeing a residence registration here for text work in 2015 for Kate Brower. And then if we browse a little bit farther down, we'll see both in 2020 and in 2023, we see Ms. Brower here as the first party. So it looks like she was assigning her rights to the residents to Ice Cream Fridge LLC, which I did a little Google searching, and it turns out that they have the same address as Netflix in Los Angeles. And so I think we can kind of understand from this search that that Kate registered the residents in 2015, assigned those rights at least once, and then I think that's probably when Netflix made their series about it that we've seen just recently streaming on their platform. All right, and I think what I also want to talk about here, I'm going to clear these out for a minute. We went through the field headings, but I also want to talk a little bit about these 3 search types that we have. So we're going to do a title search with Indiana Jones, and we're using as a phrase, so that's going to search all the title fields that have Indiana Jones as a phrase with those 2 words in that order. And so as we perform that search, we're getting back about 645 results. And so you see, we have a title that's Raiders March, Indiana Jones, and then Indiana Jones et al., Indiana Jones by itself. And so this is looking for those words that you're putting in your text search in that order, in the field that you're specifying. If we want to narrow that down a little bit, we can go with a starts with search. This is really similar to a left anchored search or a left match search, which is, I think, the default that's used on the online public catalog at the moment. If we run that search with that same phrase, we're limited to 423 results. And you'll see that as we go down through these results, they all the title begins with Indiana Jones, and then there's some variation on the titles available after that. So it's looking for Indiana Jones, and then after that, it's kind of a wildcard search. We want to limit that even further, and we know exactly what we're looking for, that it contains exactly those 2 words, nothing more, nothing less. Then we can use the isExact search, and you can see that we've gone from about 400 results down to just over 30, where the title is just Indiana Jones. We are getting some registration and recorded document results in here as well. So those are the 3 main search types that we have that are available on the advanced search, and hopefully the way that those filter down information is helpful for you in your searches. I did want to show the material excluded while we're here on the advanced search page. And so I think we did show this in a previous webinar, and we're not looking for isExact. Let's look for as a phrase. That should get us a slightly bigger result set. Yep, there we go, about 600 results. And so what this is doing is when applicants are registering their claim for copyright, there is a place where you can specify any material that is excluded from that claim for copyright. And so we can see on this registration right here that the text from Shakespeare was excluded. On this title, Stay After Class, if we go to the next one, we can see there's some Shakespeare quotes that were excluded from this title. Again, some more quotes from this one. And so, and a couple of characters from this record right here. So we wanted to make it a little bit easier for the public to be able to find works that may have been included in a work, but are excluded from that copyright claim. So let's go back up here to the top header, and we had mentioned recent records and recent searches. So up here on the top bar, we can click on recent records, and within a session, the recent records will preserve the 100 last records that you have looked at that detailed record view. So you can see here are the ones that had the material excluded from Shakespeare that we just looked at. We can see the Hamilton result that we were looking at earlier as well. We can click any of these titles to get back to the detailed record view to see the full record again. And this does capture the date that we had looked at that record. Very similarly with recent searches, this will capture the most recent 100 searches within your session. So you can see we started out, there's the Hamilton Broadway cast. That I think I was looking at, yep, a little bit before our webinar started at about 1/4 of. you can see we've looked at some of these as well, right? Here was the different formatting that we looked at for the registration number, and then some of the phrases that we've done. These were all the keyword searches, so we capture the field headings, whether it was a keyword search, if it was material excluded, or combinations of the title and the names. So we try to capture a little bit of additional context for these searches for you if you want to rerun those searches again. And then you can also perform actions on these. You can clear those out. You can download the search itself, or you can email that to yourself for later if you're worried about it disappearing from this recent search. And again, if we want to do this search again, we can just click on the search and it should populate. Let me just double check. And it should repopulate those searches for you, so you can check those again if you like. Robin also mentioned some of the related registration records. We can look at a couple here as well. So we have this registration here has a supplemented by work. So there's an original registration, the office's catalog. There's a supplemental for this as well. This will also be noted in previous versions of the public catalog, but now you'll be able to click on that hyperlink where we have a supplemented by record. It'll search for that registration number and then bring that back for you. And then we'll see that we have that additional record here. It's still tied back to that previous with the supplemented to link. And oftentimes there is a little bit of corrections explained. So it looks like it should be Montana and not Mississippi in the state. Some of the other examples of these related registration records that we have are the cancellation and re-registration. So we can see we have this registration as a performing arts unpublished, was re-registered as a sound recording, still unpublished, and we'll see a little bit more context about that registration there. So we're trying to make these a little bit easier to find these related registration numbers. And then the last example we have to share for these is a registration that has 2 previous registrations and a pre-registration. Again, all of these are linked and should perform searches based on those numbers to allow you to locate the records that are referenced and make decisions about which record is the one that you're really looking for in your search. And so this is searching for that PAU 681. Here we're seeing that 5134. And this is looking for the pre-registration for 6302. We also have one more example of recorded documents where we can find these related registration numbers. So this is a single work within a recorded document. And we can see there's a long list of individual works associated. So it looks like we have almost 9,000 titles in this list. Any of these we can click into. We see that there's a registration number noted here. Again, these are not verified by the office, but they have been indexed by the parties recording the document. And so we provide the ability to search for that. So searching for that registration number that was noted in there finds the original registration, and those titles seem to be the same thing. So hopefully that makes searching for those related registration numbers a little bit easier. Again, back up on the header, our name directory functionality. This is looking through all of the indexed names that have come in through copyright submissions. Clicking on any of the names that we have here will show you a list of records that are associated with that specific name. So we're going to do a quick search because I was just thinking about the Gershwin Prize the other day. And so searching for Smokey Robinson is going to get us this results page. And I would like to point out that Smokey Robinson, the Smokey Robinson pseudonym, this pseudonym as well, and this spelling of Smokey Robinson are all showing up as different listings with a different amount of records because they are slightly different spellings. So the Copyright Office doesn't maintain a name authority, but instead indexes names as they're submitted on the application. So if the application names are spelled slightly differently, they will be indexed differently. And so if you are having trouble finding all of the copyrights associated with your name within the system, you may want to check to see if there are slightly different spellings, because that can alter the way that they present, at least in the name directory. But once you've found one of the names that you're looking for in the name directory, we can see this associated records page for Smokey Robinson, where we can scroll down and see all of these results. They can be sorted by title, by the record type, by date, and by copyright number. Clicking on any of these will take you to that record itself, and then you can re-access that name directory by picking any of these names that are hyperlinked here. So if we click this, this will take us back to that Smokey Robinson associated record page. And clicking on Smokey's name here brings us back to that main name directory, where we can browse through just in case there are alternate spellings of that name that you're searching for. So we can go back quickly to the card catalog records. And I believe Robin had mentioned Rudolph Valentino. And so we'll see what we can get doing a brief keyword search for Rudolph Valentino reflections. We do get a fair amount of results, so because that's probably looking for each one of these occurrences. The occurrences of single words are going to be towards the end of that set of results. But if we do look over on the side, again, that post-1977 records are those that are found in the current online public catalog. But if you want to just filter by just the cards themselves, we have this collections facet here. So you can select there to limit your results, but I believe this one was probably up at the top regardless. Again, we're showing some of the relevant dates and search terms, but as you click into the record, you'll be able to see that card. And with this viewer, you can zoom in to double check some of the information and see all the print that was on the card. We can flip over and see the verso of that card as well, where there is additional information. And all of the pertinent dates that will help you locate this record, as well as the claimant, the work name itself, and authors, if indicated, should be captured in the metadata here. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for you to be able to search some of those earlier records and to be able to view that scanned image of the record itself. So let's just quickly look at the help page, and then we can wrap up the demo to make sure that we didn't miss anything. We do have some text about the simple search, again, talking about the different types of things you can search for using that simple search bar, a little explanation of that simple search logic. We do note that there is a special search term since this does connect to a database. If you put in a star, that will pull all the available records. If you're curious about querying everything, again, we won't return more than the first 50,000 results in your search, but the facets and filters will give you a good record count of how many are available in the database. We talked about the advanced search and the different field headings that we have available, the main 3 search types that we have available on advanced search. As a phrase, starts with and is exact, and we do have examples of those with our Indiana Jones example that we had just used. We talked briefly about the name directory, what that list view looks like. We have a Steven Spielberg example here, and then what that associated record view looks like as well. I'm supposed to be clicking into that Spielberg example. A little more context about our search results, talking about how we can sort by dates, alphabetically by the title, and then those actions that we could take on the records from the search results, such as emailing them to yourselves or downloading text, a PDF, or a CSV file. We talked briefly about the date filters, how we can have a start and an end date, and how those different dates change our search results in the view, as well as how those are applicable to different types of records depending on the date itself. We did also discuss the fact that those facets and filters, while we believe they are helpful in narrowing down your search results, that Please do keep in mind that those the metadata that provides those facets and filters has changed quite a lot with copyright law and with time. So keep that in mind as you're using those facets and filters, that they may not be exhaustive. We covered the two main collection types that are available, and then the different record types, the publication statuses, registration, and recordation document types. If you are curious about the card catalog records, I believe we already put the link to the blog post in the chat. We have a link here to the Copyright Act of 1976 as well, if you'd like to reference that to understand a little bit more about the post-77 records. And I did mention the post-77 registration classes and the earlier ones from the card catalog. We have a link here for the Administrative Copyright Classification System PDF. It's a resource that'll help you understand how those administrative classes have changed over time and how they show up in the records today. That's available as well on the Copyright Public Records portal, which contains not only links to the Copyright Public Records system, but other systems as well to help provide context and understanding of copyright records. So I think this is wrapping up the demo. We would like to talk briefly about some of our upcoming development targets. So again, Denise mentioned that we are replacing the current online public catalog with the Copyright Public Records system in June 2025, so next month. Once we have made that transition away from the older system and towards our new modernized system, we're going to look at integrating more fully with the Enterprise Copyright System recordation system. This will allow us to provide even more indexing information that system collects that is not currently available in the Copyright Public Records system. Similarly, with the Electronic Copyright Office registration system, we'll be providing even more indexing information, specifically a larger array of standard identifiers that have been collected by that system, but were unavailable to the older public catalog. Moving on from that, we know everyone's excited about the Enterprise Copyright System registration system. So once that is up and running and available to the public, we'll be pulling in information from that system as well to help build a more robust public record. And as we complete our digitization efforts for the record books, for the microfilm, and continue to add card catalog records, we'll be providing those in CPRS as well. So I think we also have a couple more resources that we'd like to share. There are some tutorials on how to use CPRS. I believe we have 2 videos that we're going to put links to in the chat. Those are both on the same tutorial page. The Copyright Office has a fantastic Learning Engine video series that can really teach you a lot about copyright. I'd highly recommend it if you're trying to understand the larger copyright world and how that influences the information that you can find in the Copyright Public Record system. And we also have a link to our page about the continuous development of our IT systems that contains a number of previous webinars that we presented on the Copyright Public Record system, as well as webinars about the Copyright Public Modernization Committee, where we've spoken about many aspects of the enterprise copyright system. So with that, I believe we've come to the end of our presentation, and we can transition over to the Q&A portion. And to help us out with that, I'd like to pass off to my colleague, Anjana.
Thank you, Sean, Robin, and Denise, and hello, everyone. As Sean mentioned, my name is Anjana Padmanabhan, and I'm a Public Affairs Specialist in the Public Education and Information Division. We'll now begin the question and answer portion of the program. As a reminder, you can submit relevant questions by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but we may not be able to answer all of the questions that are submitted today. So let's jump right in. Denise, I have a 2-part question for you related to the CPRS transition in June. This person is asking, what day in June are we fully moving over to CPRS? And if there's a set date? And will the old Voyager system stay up for a while for testing when the new system becomes official?
Thank you, Anjana. I know everyone's very excited about the go live. We've received a lot of great feedback about the system, so I'm not surprised. The system is going to go live before the end of June. To learn more about the actual go live date, please follow us on social media because we will be announcing the go live date through our social media accounts. As far as the old public record system, the old public record system, which we call Voyager, will not be available to the public after CPRS does go live. If you do need assistance after the go live to confirm information between the old public catalog and CPRS, I would encourage you to reach out to our staff here in the Copyright Office. We have great staff in the Public Information Office, in the Records Research and Certification Division, as well as the CPR team that can assist you. So you can use the normal help links to get help from copyright staff. So hopefully that answers those two questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Denise. Sean, I have a question for you that's come up a few times, and this is around being able to see the copyright deposit and whether that is possible in CPRS.
So thanks, Anjana. I believe we spoke briefly about that when we talked about what to expect and what not to expect in the copyright public record system. We don't have copies of the deposit available. We have heard a lot of people asking and or expecting that in our user feedback surveys. But that's something that I think, unfortunately, is more of a registration policy and programs decision. But so right now, we are presenting only indexing information about those deposits. But if you are curious about examining those, I believe you can contact Records Research and Certification.
Great. And staying with you, Sean, this question has also come up a couple of times around copyrights recorded between 1945 and 1978 and how they can be found. And also, as we continue to add in those records, how will the public know that they've been added to CPRS? And I think you covered this a bit in your talk.
Yeah, I did mention that there is a little bit of a gap right now between the card records that we have available that go up through 1945 and when the law changed and we had the newer post-77 records. There are some online resources at archive.org has the catalog of copyright entries digitized. That's a good place to check. We also know the New York Public Library was working on digitizing as well, and so they may have some additional information. But beyond that, there's always the Copyright Public Records Reading Room itself, which is the most authoritative source of copyright information, especially for that time period.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Robin, I have a question for you, and this is a broader, more general question, just letting folks know what the difference between recordation and registration is. I know we get this question a lot.
Okay, well, assuming it has gone through the registration process and is registered, a registration is a public record is created for that work, and you can see the specifics of the registration claim. A recordation is a document that is submitted that transfers or assigns the rights to that registration to another party.
Great. Thanks, Robin. Sean, I have a question about PII. And this person is asking if PII was removed from online records by the copyright registrant, would those suddenly become available to the public in any of the recent online catalog changes? So when CPRS is fully live.
I don't want to speak too much about PII redaction since that's not my specialty, but I do know that the office has been reviewing older documents that may contain PII and scrubbing those before they're made available to the Copyright Public Record System. So if that question is about older documents or older certificates that may contain PII, the office has been working on removing those with the thought of making those available sometime in the future. But I think in addition to that, we do have a pretty well-established PII removal process that can be kicked off through the office's Public Information Office, I believe.
Great, thanks, Sean. I have a couple of search-specific questions that I may ask you directly. What is the best format to search for a company name with an ampersand in it? For instance, ANA Gardening.
Oh, that could be tricky. So we do have some Boolean capabilities. The search system runs on OpenSearch. It's an open source search software. And so there is a fair amount of documentation on the Boolean operators that are available there. I would try either an asterisk or a question mark there. And there's also, in between that ampersand, there's also the idea of slop, which you can specify how many different characters can appear between another set of characters. It's a little bit too much to go into right now, but we'll try to include some of that documentation on our help page as we build out some of those additional querying features. We do realize there are some edge cases that can be a little bit difficult to search for, and we like to make sure that we can accommodate those folks.
Thanks, Sean. I know in your presentation you covered the date filters. This person is asking what the difference between date and date of recordation in the search results are.
So the default date that we have covers a couple different dates, mainly the date of recordation for recorded documents, the effective date of registration for registrations, and I believe the publishing date for copyright serials. So it's a way to be able to search across multiple types of records using a single date. So if you specify just the date and you do a search, you'll be able to find both recorded documents and registrations. But if you want to select just one of those, you're going to be limiting your search that way to that document type.
Got it, thanks. And Robin, this one's for you. Is the copyright note appearing on the record something entered by the registrant or the Copyright Office?
Generally, I believe it's something that is entered by the Copyright Office to provide a little bit more information about the registration, such as something that may have been included that isn't part of one of the other specific fields.
Got it. Another question that we have here, perhaps for you, Sean, or potentially Robin, will we be able to sort recordations by volume and doc numbers, or can that function be added? When trying to find the chain, the same documents come up multiple times. It would make things easier if we could sort by volume and doc numbers as well.
Yeah, we do have the ability to sort by copyright number. I don't think it's in production yet, but it may be coming out in our upcoming release on May 27th. It's definitely something we've been working on in our testing and lower environments, and so you should be seeing that on the production environment available for the public very soon. So yeah, the ability to sort by copyright number, and when I say copyright number, I mean either registration number or volume and document numbers for recorded documents.
Great, thank you. Another question, if you're in advanced search mode and searching by title and is exact, does that also pick up application titles and alternate titles within the registration record itself?
It should. The title field heading covers quite a lot of pieces of information within our record. We expanded it. It's much more than just the title or the application title. I believe it also covers variant titles, other titles, and contents as well. We know that sometimes if you're looking for the title of a song on an album, the album may be the title that was registered, but the song name will be in the contents. And so we wanted to make sure that people were able to find that the name of that part of the work, even if they were thinking of that as the title. So yeah, there's quite a long list of the data elements and pieces of information that field heading title searches.
Great. I think we have time for just one or two more questions. Here's another one. In CPRS, how do we identify the current owner is no longer alive? Relatedly, where do we identify if the copyright has expired?
So I think the way that the birth and death dates, I think some of those appear on the name directory. Those are taken from the application itself, and as far as I know, are taken exactly as they've been submitted by the applicant. So I do not know if that's something that is actively monitored by the office, but it is as it was stated on the copyright application itself.
Great, thanks, Sean. And I believe that's all the time we have for today, and that will conclude our webinar. When you sign out of the session, we encourage you to take part in a brief survey regarding your experience. We use this to improve our webinar program, so your feedback is greatly appreciated. Additionally, if you have further questions or need more information, you'll see a URL for our contact forms page at copyright.gov/help on the screen. This page provides options for how to reach our office. We will paste the link in the chat. There are also a host of ways you can engage with us by subscribing to our Newsnet, blog, events, and social media channels. The URL for that is copyright.gov/subscribe. We will be posting the recording of today's webinar on our event page soon, so please keep an eye out for that. All of the links to the various web resources that were shared in the chat today will also be available on our event page when the recording goes live. Thank you for your participation today, and we hope you join us again for future Copyright Office events.